Well, good morning. It's Caroline Stevens, Seeking the Truth. It's a beautifully sunny morning here, and I'd like to welcome you back, Alan Dransfield, the Vexatious King of England and Scotland, all the way from Boston in Lincolnshire. So, Alan, would you like to introduce yourself and talk about freedom of information, which is an act that Tony Blair played a pivotal role in the year 2000, yet it wasn't used, this act, until 2005. I wonder why. Maybe we'll never know. Welcome, Alan.
Hi, Caroline. Thank you very much for your invitation to come and chat about the freedom of information once again, and I could talk all day about it. Good morning, viewers and listeners from all around the nation. Yes, I have deep concerns for the Freedom of Information Act 2000, and as Caroline stated in her introduction, it was first brought into use by Tony Blair, God bless him. But in his book, in some later years, he said that was the worst thing he ever did. So that just goes to show what a fraud Mr. Tony Blair was. And there is a photograph of Mr. Blair underlined by Dransfield, Vexatious King of England, and it's in the Daily Telegraph from about 4 or 5 years ago. So that was my claim to fame of the day. Excuse me. But seriously, the Freedom of Information Act is, as far as I'm concerned, being used and abused by the people that get paid a king's ransom to police it and protect it, i.e. the Information Commissioner, shortcut abbreviation, the ICO, which is now run by a Canadian, Elizabeth Denham. Why a Canadian is running our legal system for such an important is beyond me. It's also beyond me why she has been working from home since about June, and home being Vancouver. So all this time, this year, the basic meat of the sandwich, 2001, she hasn't been steering the ship of the freedom of information, which is disgraceful. You know, we've got COVID, we've got Brexit, and she is just swanning around in Vancouver. I didn't know if you were aware of that, Caroline. Were you aware?
I did not. And, you mentioned, Tony Blair brought in this act. Tony Blair hasn't gone away. And one of the reasons why he keeps being wheeled onto the TV, I guess, is because he sits on the very prestigious Privy Council, which is really the shadow government. This is really the government that does run UK Corporation, UK PLC. And so Tony Blair obviously has a big part to play alongside Jacob Rees-Mogg, Malek Brown, and so forth. So I don't know if this Denham lady is actually on the Privy Council, but you're saying she's actually in Canada and she's in charge of all. Where does the Duchy of Lancaster come into this?
Very good question. The Duchy of Lancaster, which is our good friend, Mr. Michael Gove, as cabinet minister and number one, second to Fatboy Johnson, or even third, because Rob is in there somewhere. Not many people know that the Duchy of Lancaster. Not many people know who the Duchy of Lancaster is. Even the Duchy of Lancaster is Her Majesty the Queen. And the Chancellor to the Queen is none other than Michael Gove. He has primacy to the Freedom of Information Act. He alone can make any changes to the Freedom of Information Act. He or the Fatboy Johnson and the Cabinet Office wish to make. Do excuse me for calling him Fatboy Johnson, but I can't show respect for any of them. They really are villains, scoundrels. So I treat them as they deserve. But to my mind, the government and the realm should be separated. So why is Michael Gove reporting, and in his duty, he claims that he has to do this job one day a week. So he is doing the chancellors to the Duchy of Lancaster once a week, and he's sitting down with Queenie, and Queenie's saying, "Well, Michael, what shall we do about this freedom of information nonsense? We've got this Alan Dransfield up in Boston, and he's nothing but a pain in the arse, Michael, we must get rid of him." Okay.
I bet they wish you were in Boston in the USA, never mind Boston in Lincolnshire.
Absolutely. But getting back to the serious part of it, that answers your question. Why has Michael Gove got such an important role? He can make any changes, which they've done. And what I'm claiming is that the Freedom of Information Act is being used and abused by the people who get paid to police it. And our good friend, what's her name, Elizabeth Denham, she spent the last 3-4 months in Canada. But anyway, the reason I got to be the Vexatious King of England and Scotland is in 2012, Judge Nicholas Whiteley, he ruled in an upper tribunal decision that my request to my local public authority in Devon, which I was seeking on safety aspects of a particular bridge, and I can give the team now a shout out. It was Exeter Chiefs Rugby Club, who have done famously over the past 2 years. But there is a bridge that connects their club and their ground to the main arteries for pedestrians. And I claim, and I still claim, that bridge was never protected by lightning protection. And this is why I had to go through all the realms of freedom of information asking, and it was deemed that my request was vexatious. And so from the upper tribunal, I went to the Court of Appeal. I went and acted for myself, which the courts in England don't like today. They don't like litigants in persons. And it's even worse if you're a vexatious litigant. But to cut a long story short, and I will just quote what the Court of Appeal Justice Lady Ardin, who now is promoted to the Supreme Court. She is now a Supreme Court judge, and she claims. Listen to this, viewers. It's incredible. In my judgment, the upper tribunal was right not to attempt to provide any comprehensive or exhaustive definition of vexatious. Why? Even now, 20 years after the Freedom of Information Act was introduced by Tony Blair, there is no legal definition of vexatious. So how the hell can anyone go to court and be ruled vexatious if there is no vexatious legal argument? All right, okay. It would be better to allow the meaning of the phrase to be winnowed out in cases of that arise. However, for my own part, in the context of the freedom of information, I consider that the emphasis should be on the objective standard that the starting point for vexatious primarily involves making a request which, and this is the most important part, which has no reasonable foundation. That is, no reasonable foundation for thinking that the information sought would be of value to the requester or to the public or any section of the public. How bizarre is that? Because at this moment in time, we all know that Lockerbie is in the news and it's in the High Court costing millions of pounds. And anyone putting a Freedom of Information request in for Lockerbie over the past 10, 15 years will be treated with, no, you can't have this information, in line with Dransfield vexatious, in line with the Court of Appeal. So what they're saying is that the 360 people in Lockerbie that died, I don't know if that's the correct number, it's of no value, it's no serious purpose, it's no value to the requester, no value to any person. It just beggars belief. And so this Dransfield vexatious court president and court authority is being used exactly for what it was designed to do. You know, the Freedom of Information Act was brought in by Tony Blair. Oh, look at us. We're so honest and honourable. If you have a problem and you want freedom of information, you just put in a freedom of information. And now we know what's happening to it. And the Dransfield vexatious nonsense has been used, and I keep account, somewhere in the region of 15,000 times since Judge Wycliffe brought in the vexatious Dransfield in January 2013. And so it just goes on and on and on. And recently, when I say recently, 12 months ago, I put in some requests for five public authorities over a period of time. And the five public authorities were Greater London Authority, the Information Commissioner's Office itself, the Ministry of Justice itself, and London Legacy, and QUAC, which is Chester West and Cheshire Council, which must be one of the most corrupt public authorities in the kingdom.
Right, can I just stop you there then? So you're saying that in the last few months you've contacted those five authorities. Now, you mentioned the London one. Was that in connection with the Grenfell Towers?
It was for the Grenfell Towers, but it was also for the accountability and the quality and the standards of the Olympic Stadium, which I had serious concerns for the safety, lightning, a death on the stadium back just after it was opened. No, just before it was opened.
There was a death, was there? What?
There was a death. Yes, a Balfour Beatty, who I used to work for, a Balfour Beatty construction worker, went onto the roof one Sunday morning and fell. Now, did he fall or was he pushed? And again, you have to say it was questionable because I couldn't get the answers for it. In a situation like that, the Metropolitan Police have total remit. People seem to think it's the health and safety. The health and safety did come as properly, but the police run it. And to put a long story short, the health and safety and the Metropolitan Police told the Balfour Beatty management there on that day when the guy had been taken to the ambulance and before rigor mortis had set in, no, this is okay. This is not a work-related issue. You can open up your works straight away. So this is absolutely incredible. Where the police are involved, the health and safety executive are involved, and it is madness to suggest that this wasn't a suspicious death. And we still don't know the full details. No, but the main press, they don't care, they're not interested, they won't ask questions. So that was for my freedom of information for that particular issue. There's the next one, which was the Information Commissioner. I've got dozens of freedom of information requests direct to the Information Commissioner because people don't realise that the Information Commissioner are a public authority, so they are subject to the freedom of information request, and they must respond and reply to your freedom of information request, to yours, Joe Blogs, anyone. But the latest decision by Judge Wycliffe, which was less than 3 weeks ago, on the 10th of this month, I'll go on to that to discuss that in a few moments' time, does now allow the Information Commissioner and other rogue public authorities not to respond to any request, just ignore it. Just ignore it. And that is absolutely and utterly wrong, because the Freedom of Information Law 2000 clearly states each and every freedom of information request shall be treated by merit. Now, that means by merit, it shall be treated, it shall be looked at, it shall be investigated. Now, the Information Commissioner, Miss Cutie, as I affectionately call her, Miss Denham, she has come up with this idea. Yes, we we will make out that we are looking at these information requests, such as from Dransfield, but we will then say, no, he's vexatious without the proper investigation. And anyone out there that's had a Freedom of Information request and it's gone through to the Information Commissioner on appeal, they make the decision and then they will give you what's called an FS number. I don't know the abbreviation of the FS, but it's from the ICO, FS, and it usually has an eight-digit number. So these 5 that I'm talking about is FS 50700A40, and then the latest one there was with Chester West, FS 507-19521. So if you, for example, were to go into the Information Commissioner's website and put the search engine on their website, and you put in FS 507-19521, that's Chester West, you wouldn't get anything because it's been pushed under the table. It is not on the record.
Right, okay.
But,
so only when they actually give you some information does it actually have a proper number that's registered somewhere?
Absolutely, and I'll give you a clear example of that. Someone, and you never know, when I say someone, you never know who the Freedom of Information requester is. For the past 3 or 4 years, the ICO main office up in Cheshire, I'm just trying to think, Wilmslow, Cheshire, has been leaking radon gas. Now, if someone told me my house was leaking radon gas, I would be out. Or my son's house, get out. Because it is a silent killer. It will kill you. And it will give you lung cancer, and it will give you what's a very topical subject at this moment in time, cognitive issues. And so this is probably why Miss Cutie, Miss Denham, ran away to Vancouver, because she's suffering with cognitive issues. She doesn't know how to work the Freedom of Information, so she's lost the plot. Now, this requester asking for information on radon gas, when did you last test, what provisions are in place, what are you going to do about it? She responded, in line with Dransfield, Section 14.1, you are vexatious, go away. But she gave the real number for that, FS, so anyone wanting information on that radon gas in their headquarters, all you need to do is go in their search engine and put radon gas in there, and you will get the exact number, the reference number, and the decision, which is incredible. I don't know how many people's working in that office, but I would guesstimate maybe 200 people. They've got 600 people working for them nationwide, one of them in Vancouver. I can't let that slip because it's disgraceful. So there's 200 people there. They could be dying. And someone has asked for information, pertinent information, and they're being told it is vexatious. Yeah, that is disgraceful. And so
let's talk about that case for a minute. The radon gas case. Where is this radon gas coming from? Which is it, a public building?
Right. Yeah. Radon gas is what they call a natural phenomenon. So really and truly, that particular request, and it's a good question you've asked me, should not have been considered under the Freedom of Information. It should have been considered under the EIR regulations, the Environmental Information Regulations. But that's beside the point. But if they're doing their job properly, now going back to radon gas being a natural phenomenon, it is all over the place. It is especially predominant in limestone and rock areas. It's not to be mistaken with methane gas. Methane gas is a killer, and it's explosive. And again, Chester Council, and I'm not digressing here, Sheila Oliver, who is a very keen freedom of information campaigner like myself, was asking for questions of a 1,000-student school in Stockport. I can't remember the exact location. And it was built on a former land site. And still today, it is leaking methane gas into the schools. That school could go bang anytime. And that's just one example. There are dozens of examples of that happening.
Can I just stop you there? So you're saying there's a school with children in it that has methane gas in it?
Absolutely.
Whereabouts
methane
is this?
Gas. From the top of my head, I can't remember the name of the school because I wasn't going to discuss this today, but it doesn't matter. I will get this. I'll get this for you after the show. But it is in Stockport, and I must be getting old. Once upon a time, I could remember the name of the school and the postcode. But if you go into the Alan Dransfield blog, you just go into Google Alan Dransfield blog, and you will find Sheila Oliver. It's her website, and she administers it, and we share it. She obviously checks all mine because she wants to be sure that it's not vexatious or it's not libelous. But yes, I can assure you that this, and it was built for 1,000 children. And it was opened, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 years ago. So it's modern.
Wow.
And it's built on top of a landfill site. Now, what would you expect to get from a landfill site?
Gas.
Gas. But methane gas and landfill is completely different. That's man-made. When we send out dustbins and we fill it out, I think there is a period. It shouldn't be built upon for 30 years. But you know what's happening in local councils. Look at Joe Anderson up in Manchester. You know, this sort of situation, and Rob Pictou was asking very pertinent questions, and unfortunately he died. Some claim he was murdered. Some claim but I'm not here today to go into depth of that, but what I'm saying, and look at the situation with the Manchester Chief Constable, 80,000 crimes not even touched. And he said, well, okay, 80,000 crimes, I admit, and just walks away. He walks away with a pension. He should be, sit down, okay, we'll take your resignation. But the first thing is you lose your pension, dear boy. You don't get a penny. And we want to know 80 cases. What are the cases you didn't look at? Why?
80,000?
80,000, yes, absolutely.
Huge number.
Absolutely. Oh, and by the way, you will be remanded in prison and have some porridge every day until we get to the bottom of it. Call me old-fashioned, but that's the way it is. Now, this radon gas is still leaking into the ICO building, and they claim that anyone making a request for any information reference radon gas is vexatious. The Freedom of Information Act is very, very clear. If you are asking for information that is health and safety related, it cannot be vexatious. So how can requests for Lockerbie be vexatious? How can requests for radon gas be vexatious? How can my requests for 5 major public authorities in London be vexatious? No, vexatious, I'm sure we discussed this several times before, but for any new listeners and new viewers, I claim vexatious was designed by crooks to protect crooks. And when I say crooks, Christopher Graham, the choir boy, affectionately known as the choir boy, prior to Miss Cutie, Elizabeth Denham, was the Information Commissioner. And back in 2010, when I put my Freedom of Information request in, it was around about the time that Heather Brook was exposing and blowing the whistle on all the MPs' expenses. Do you remember?
Yeah.
The duck pond in Sleaford, and people were stealing, thieves, thieving, lying, scoundrels, MPs. Oh, well, what's new? Anyway, they said, what can we do? This is my inclination of what happened. So they said, right, we have this Dransfield guy before the upper tribunal in a couple of weeks. Let's nail him to the board with this vexatious nonsense, and then we can use vexatious for whatever we need to do. So I claim the vexatious court authority was designed by crooks to protect crooks, and it's still ongoing. That is not what Section 14.1 vexatious was designed for. You could argue that if a frivolous request goes in, or a vexatious request, can you tell me how many biscuits and tea bags and jars of coffee that the Cornwall County Council used? Some people would say, well, that's a little bit frivolous, but no, I disagree, because if someone wants to know where every penny has been spent by a public authority, then it's not vexatious, it's not frivolous. So the frivolous, vexatious, Dransfield bullshit, to excuse my French viewers and listeners, has been now created to protect the baddies, when it was initially protected for Joe Bloggs. Caroline Stevens seeking the truth. But it is a very serious issue.
Can I just stop you there? So,
yes.
So basically, you pay £10, is that right, when you put in an application for the Freedom of Information?
Excuse me, say again, you are breaking up from time to time.
Yes. There was a bit of interference earlier. It sounded like somebody was running a bath. It only started when we were on air. Do you pay £10 when you send off for a Freedom of Information Act request?
No. That is a myth, a misconception. The use of freedom of information is entirely free. You do not pay a penny. And if anybody's been paying money, they shouldn't be. I've been now a freedom of information activist since 2005, which is 15 years. I should get a medal shortly. Maybe I'll get a knighthood. And I have never paid a penny for the freedom of information.
Sorry to interrupt. Have you ever applied for a Freedom of Information Act request regarding the present coronavirus situation from any angle?
No, I haven't. And it's a very interesting question, because I would imagine there is a problem there, but I don't know, because my glass is 3/4 full, and I haven't decided to go down that route at this moment in time. But when you look at there's no reason why people can't put freedom of information into their hospital and find out the true cause of death, the death certificate, PPE, and all sorts of things. So, no, to answer your question, no, I haven't. Okay,
but that's something that people at home might like to get involved in.
Well, absolutely, because there are suspicions out there with what I've just been talking about, the true cause of death, all the procurement, PPE, the involvement of MPs. And the MPs are now saying that I think there's an audit going out. The MPs are saying, oh, we were so busy at that time and we had to do something quickly. That doesn't mean to say you ring your brother-in-law and give him the contract and pay £5 a piece for a plastic blooming scarf mask, is it? So yeah, that is another story for another show. So I was purportedly in London on the 10th of this month, facing upper tribunal Judge Whiteley in an upper tribunal on some requests that had gone into the Freedom of Information. Those particular 5 that I gave you: Greater London Authority, the ICO, Ministry of Justice, London Legacy, and Quack. And I was nowhere near London. I was up in Boston, Lincolnshire, because on the decision notice it clearly states appellant Alan Dransfield attended in person.
The
Now,
court's lied about your whereabouts.
the court didn't lie. Judge Whiteley lied. And Judge Whiteley is a liar. And I would like to look at your face now and all the listeners and say that without any conscience at all. Judge Whiteley is a cheating, lying scoundrel. And he has purposely, in actual fact, I argue, and I still argue, that he should not have been the judge on my case because he was the original judge on the original vexatious nonsense, which made me the Vexatious King of England. And because I have been fighting and screaming that I want this Section 14 and this Dransfield thing lifted, because people must think, who the hell is this Dransfield guy up in Boston? It's his fault that I can't get information. And I could give you examples all day long. Brexit. And I'm not talking about the details of Brexit, but the Brexit, deal or no deal, has been for quite some time subject to fishing and fishing rights. Now, what is this to do with the Dransfield Vexatious, I hear you cry and your fingers cry? Simple as this. One example that comes to mind, and it was when I was down, because previously I spent 27, 28 years down in Exeter and loved it, and then came back to Boston. But someone from Cornish Fisheries, a fisherman, put in, this is going back 4 or 5 years, put in, with a view to Brexit, we need to know what's going to happen on Brexit. What's the fish sizes? Where can we fish? How big are the fish going to be? Blah, da, de, blah. Very good, excellent questions from people who are worried. So this is a freedom of information request that's coming, I would imagine, from around the coast. And what did the Cornish Fisheries say? And what did the Information Commissioner say? Yes, you get it. Sir, you can't have this because in line with Dransfield, you are vexatious. So they bring in this false court president, court authority. You're looking at him, the Vexatious King of England, and use it unlawfully to block this person's freedom of information, which in itself is a breach of the law and their own law. Section, I know this from the top of my head, Section 77 of the Act. It is unlawful, jailable by people purposely, willfully blocking freedom of information requests.
Well, it's not unreasonable if you work in the fishing industry to want to know the impact of the people voting to leave the European Union, surely 4.5 years ago. How can you run a business if you don't know, the devil is always in the detail. And of course, 4.5 years on, we see the mess that the government has made, and people perhaps don't realise that the government is leaving the situation in a total mess because the media is obviously supportive of the puppet government, the New World Order.
I couldn't agree more. Well said, my lady. Yeah, and that is the truth. You needn't seek the truth anymore. You found it, and you're spreading it. And this is not the first time I've heard you say this, and it's absolutely spot on. So there will be no Brexit deal because the fishermen are they're gagged. And again, I go back to what I was saying at the start of the programme. Joe Public is being gagged from using the Freedom of Information request. So getting back to the decision by Judge Whiteley on the 10th of this month, which incidentally is not available. I can send you a copy because I do have it. It came to me via email, unsigned, because all upper tribunal, lower tribunal, which is the first tier tribunal, and information commissioners are usually sent out by post with a hard signature. This wasn't sent out on hard copy. It was sent by email without Judge Whiteley's signature. So I've claimed to him, I'm already going to appeal to the Court of Appeal, but I've claimed to him that this decision, his decision, is unlawful. It's as simple as that. Now, why did he say I was in London when I wasn't? And why didn't he tell me? Because he has investigated my claims on this latest one on what they call papers, where no verbal is given, and no people are in place. But he has not told me, because had he told me 2 weeks before the 10th of this month, I would have gone back to him and said, no, I disagree. I disagree that you being there as the judge, because you're in conflict of interest. You don't want to make a different decision today than you made on January the 23rd, 2013. So Judge Whiteley is a baddie. He is a fraudster, and he is controlling the Information Commissioner. And the Information Commissioner is also a fraudster. Miss Denham, who is in, maybe she's back now, she should be back, she was in Vancouver. She is the gatekeeper to the government. She is controlling this Dransfield vexatious nonsense to any person whose information came out, sensitive information, would be catastrophic to, an example, the fire, Julian Assange, which is another one that's in the courts at this moment in time.
Have you applied for information on Julian Assange?
No, I haven't. And I possibly will, because at this moment in time, Julian Assange, Brexit, and Lockerbie are very key to the freedom of information. And this is why our good friend Michael Gove is sitting there and he's having a chat and a drop of port and sherry with the Queenie, and then it's like a chess game. Now, what can we do to stop this information? We have the Dransfield case, and on the 10th of this month, they had the Dransfield case again, and they have now come up with an even better solution to stop the freedom of information. And it's under section, I can tell you this from the top of my head, section 52, inverted brackets, C, 52C, which gives the freedom of information, Miss Cutie, Miss Denham, the ability to say, okay, this has arrived today, madam, it's Dransfield's request, throw the bin. 52C allows that because it claims that the request is frivolous and vexatious. Gone. So Dransfield is deceased as far as the freedom of information. I cannot submit freedom of information requests to Denham. Or to, if I submit a freedom of information request or to a subject access request to my local council here, East Lindsey Council, Lincolnshire County Council, they've been briefed. All these public authorities around the country, they've been briefed. Do not release information that will come back and haunt you. Use the Dransfield Vexatious 14.1. And then when Dransfield elevates his request to the Information Commissioner, Miss Cutie throws it straight in the bin. And that's what this upper tribunal was all about on the 10th of January. And sure enough, our good friend, Judge Whiteley, has upheld the ICO decision. Dransfield is no longer. So I must have been a serious problem to them.
Well, I just see this as a huge problem with our court system, and the way you've perfectly explained it is that all these judges are gatekeepers for the Crown Corporation. So anybody embarking on anything in court, it's not going to work against the government, is it? It's never going to work against the government. It's never going to work against the banksters. It's never going to work against the corporate elites.
Absolutely correct. And unfortunately, touch wood, I've never had a problem where I've been required to go to the court. I've reached 70 years of age with a very clean conduct record, which I'm very proud of. And I don't want to go to court, but I don't argue with your statement one bit. And I know from the line that I'm in, I class myself, and Judge Whiteley was very sarcastic. He was saying, oh, this guy, he's a self-claimer, a freedom of information campaigner, and a social watchdog. I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of my vexatious nonsense, which they all keep saying. And I will keep chiseling away at them, because the truth is on my side. And if I am a problem, and if I am, say, making libelous statements or defamatory statements, go to your court. Simple as that. And getting back to, I've just thought, your question about costs for freedom of information. No, there is no cost. But the fact that I went to the Court of Appeal, I'm sitting against a nearly 3,000 costs fine from the Court of Appeal to the ICO, and they send the bailiffs round. And I'm in a situation where I just kind of thought, I'm a pensioner. There's my pension. I don't work. I haven't got a job. You're going to have to, oh no, you have to pay £100 a week. You get away from here, I cannot pay. And it's not a question I will not pay, but they're now threatening to send the bailiffs around again to recover this £3,000. So I look forward to when they come around. I'll have a chat with them.
Right, so can you just explain, why have you been charged £3,000?
Because the Information Commissioner claimed that was the costs of the court hearing from Lady Justice Ardin, who claims that Vexatious, for Lockerbie, for radon gas, for any deaths, is of no value. So that is the connection. And the Court of Appeal claim that when I went to court in May 2015, it cost the country £3,000. Which is an utter and absolute nonsense. It's a way of sticking their knife in my throat.
But it's going to stop people from doing it, for sure.
Well, absolutely. It's going to send the right message, isn't it? Well, indeed, it's the wrong message, because I encourage people. I mean, I could sit here for a week and give examples from the top of my head. I'll just give you a couple of examples and the viewers' examples. 30 Gurkhas, this is going back 2 or 3 years, they were having difficulty. They wanted to go back home after their term here. And this is most recent. Joanna Lumley was their champion, and she's a lovely person, and she took it on. And they, to cut a long story short, these 30 Gurkhas said, we're not happy with the information that you've given us. You've given us the wrong figures for our pension entitlement. We are now going to the Information Commissioner. And what do you think the Information Commissioner said to them?
They were vexatious.
Absolutely, in line with Dransfield, so that was kicked out. 30 Gurkhas. I mean, look at the history of the Gurkhas and the United Kingdom. That was just one example. Another example that comes to mind was a father in Kent somewhere whose daughter died in an ambulance that should not have been in the ambulance. She was being transferred by wrongful identity from one hospital to another, and he couldn't get the information of why she was being transported and the conditions and blah, 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 blah. So he put a freedom of information request into the local authority. No, you can't have it, in line with Dransfield Vexatious Court Authority. And there are 14 or 15,000 examples of such that people don't know about. I know about it because I whilst being a freedom of information campaigner, that's part and parcel. I keep an eye on freedom of information, vexatious decisions that's being churned out unlawfully by the Information Commissioner. And just recently, there was I should have kept it, I'll search it out. There's an article that the freedom of information is under attack. Oh my God, wakey, the British government are just believing it's under attack. And the correspondent was going on to say, yes, it's under attack. But this has just been sent to the Information Commissioner's office. And I think to myself, oh my God, you stupid person. Because the Information Commissioner is the biggest problem of the fraud. You know, she's not going to do anything. Because now I do believe she's a dame, isn't she?
Right, I don't know. But I mean, the thing is, the Privy Council, you mentioned Blair, and I think Gove's on the Privy Council as well. So this is just a real tight-knit group of people who sit around the Queen, and she's obviously still got all her marbles. So when people say the Queen doesn't know what's going on, what's the Privy Council about? She must be being briefed.
Absolutely, and then this goes on a little bit further, which we both subscribe to: the New World Order, Illuminati, blah blah blah. and they just do not want information being freely available to Joe Public as per the law. I'm not asking for anything different. I always start my Freedom of Information request under the protection of the Freedom of Information Act 2000. And that is law, and that is the protection of the law. But then I come against the Information Commissioner in Vancouver, who incidentally, she has transported and transferred her idea, the vexatious nonsense, to America, to Canada. But what a great idea. You know, if you want to stop the information coming out, speak with Elizabeth Denham, Miss Cutie, and she's got this vexatious. They cannot obviously use the Dransfield vexatious court authority because English law and American law and Canadian law is different. But she's given them the idea, vexatious. And there's a lot of people out, I didn't know what vexatious meant. I really didn't back in 2005 when I asked my local authority, Devon County Council, for these bridge details. I do know what it means now. Frivolous and vexatious means of absolute value to anybody. So really and truly, Justice Arden, who is now the Supreme Court, she was right that frivolous and vexatious is meaningless. It is. You know, how many cases of what ghosts have been seen in your area? Or
what?
Ghosts. If you were to put a Freedom of Information request into your local council asking for how many ghosts have been seen, or what do they call not the Star Wars, aliens?
Yeah.
That's frivolous and vexatious. But if you're asking for radon gas or your Gurkha pension, that is not frivolous or vexatious.
It's funny. Sorry to interrupt. It's funny you should mention about the gas coming from waste disposal. Well, waste tips, because I know that when Boris Johnson was mayor of London, property has been built over something similar within the M25. So people have got to be really, really careful about these new builds, because I'm sure this isn't going to be shown in any search. If you apply, it's not going to show up there either.
Absolutely, and it just goes to show the lengths and the level of the people involved in this cover-up.
Money.
Hence what I'm saying, the Freedom of Information, vexatious, is a crime. It was made by crooks to protect crooks. But again, it's just not minor crimes. Let's take our good friend Jimmy Savile, the vile creature. Someone put a Freedom of Information request in, I also did, for the copies of his tapes to Surrey Police back in the day, I don't know, 6 or 8 years ago, or whenever it was, I lose touch. And sure enough, you got it. You can't have this because in line with Dransfield, vexatious, your request for tapes is vexatious. How in God's name can that be vexatious? Well, you're talking about a vile creature, and we're talking about rape, we're talking about Windrush, we're talking about contaminated blood that was coming in from the States. We're talking about each and every subject you could possibly imagine. People are interested. They've got an interest. They deserve an interest because they've lost loved ones. So when they put a Freedom of Information request in and get the Dransfield vexatious nonsense coming back, there's a problem. And at this moment in time, it is all in favour of the Information Commissioner, the government. I don't know where it's going to stop.
Well, Alan, you've set the scene so succinctly. Remember, the future is going to we're moving on to online courts, aren't we? So the fact that judge said you were present in London, I guess much of this will now go online, will it not?
Oh, absolutely, because anyone that's interested in this, and I'll give you the reference number, I'll give it from the top of my head, it's GIA, which is the abbreviation of the Upper Tribunal, 399, that's the reference number from the court, 2020.
GIA 399 2020.
That's it. And it will be available as soon as, but with the COVID, everything in the government now, oh, it's COVID. It's COVID. It's COVID. And I would imagine it will be on their side, maybe the end of January, beginning of February, something like that. But I will send you a copy later today. I have it. Because it came electronically to me, so I can pick it up and set. I'm surprised I haven't sent it to you anyway. A 44-page Upper Tribunal decision from Judge Whiteley, and Judge Whiteley puts a lot of strength in the way that I speak, the manner that I speak. I'm rude sometimes, which I don't deny when I'm dealing with these cheating, lying, thieving scoundrels. But one of his colleagues, he actually ruled in my favour. His name was Judge Jacobs. Back in 2013, one of my cases was thrown out, and I appealed, and I came across this Judge Jacobs, a superman. He's the only honest man that I've met within the Upper Tribunal. And he said, Dransfield may well be, he may well be curt, he may well be rude, he may well be this, he may well be that. But that gives you no justification whatsoever to strike his case out. And he reinstated my case. Judge Jacobs, the only honest judge in the Upper Tribunal echelon.
How many are there in the Upper Tribunal?
Probably a couple of dozen.
1 out of 24.
Yeah, and Judge Whiteley, all my requests go to Judge Whiteley, because he's obviously told the registrar and the clerk. Dransfield comes to me. I deal with Dransfield. I am going to crucify Dransfield. He's got an endeavour to see me in the gutter. And so really and truly, I think most fair-minded people would agree that Judge Whiteley should not be judging Dransfield's Freedom of Information request going to the Upper Tribunal, because he will automatically, well, now he's got the Vexatious 14.1 and he's got the Section 52C. Excuse me. So they're protected. They're very well protected.
To finish off with, I noticed you'd written to Boris Johnson. Is that right?
Yes, I write to him, but I never get a request back. I never get a
response from him.
Response.
Not at all.
Never.
No.
But that doesn't stop me writing, because my records will clearly show that I contacted him.
What did you write to him about this last time? Brexit and fishing. Because, every time you look on the television, he's going off to France. He's having conversations with the lady over there. I forget her name. I'm not interested. Brexit, fishing, deal or no deal. It's all a charade. You can't get a deal because of the Dransfield Vexatious nonsense. And until the Dransfield Vexatious / frivolous is removed and replaced by honest, credible law, as the Freedom of Information, if you were to apply the Freedom of Information Act, as indeed it should be, as per the law, it would be brilliant. But Tony Blair himself said, oh my God, this is the worst thing I ever did. And so he maybe did this purposely to throw a cog in the works, a spanner in the works rather, reference the government giving information. And I'm saying to people, you are being robbed of your information, wherever it be, from COVID, from hospital treatment, from death certificates, from planning. It's absolutely incredible. I've got a friend of mine that I'm helping out that's got planning issues, and I put Freedom of Information requests into the local authority, and the local authority are picking it up straight away. No, you're vexatious, in line with Dransfield. So Dransfield is in line with Dransfield. And the planning authority that my friend wants does not include one hole
being dug, one screw being put in, one brick being laid. There's no construction whatsoever. All that she wants to do is to increase the capacity of her dog breed. No, you can't do this. You're vexatious. In line with Jansfield. It's gone completely balmy. It's being used by doctors, dentists, and if you want information from your doctor now, some doctors will say to you, please submit a freedom of information request. They're doing that. They're creating work for themselves and delays. I mean, if you've been to hospital and for whatever, and there's a report by the surgeon or the consultant, they should automatically send that to your doctor, and your doctor, to my mind, I might be wrong, should send that to you. But that's not happening. That is not happening, and I know that firsthand. So I had to put a freedom of information request in to my local doctor. They didn't claim vexatious, they gave it to me, but isn't it nonsense? It's creating work. If I've been to hospital, I want the information. There's millions of people out there. I suppose to summarise, there are millions of people in the United Kingdom that are being deprived, cheated of their civil, legal and human rights. Now that cannot be right, can it?
It certainly can't. And I'd like to finish off as well and say, well, when I have people on my timeline who defend our treacherous, treasonous MPs, I put up a post yesterday about Jacob Rees-Mogg and the millions of pounds he'd received from his investment company a couple of years ago. I think it was something like 21.9 million. And when I see people support these MPs, when MPs are supposed to have no conflict of interest, to be totally impartial, you can't reason with these people. I'm sorry, but you're going to get blocked. If you can't see that an MP receiving from private means 21.9 million, and then we've got all these MPs mentioned in the Paradise Papers, the Panama Papers, just because it might be legal, it might be immoral in many people's eyes. When you go into Parliament, you should have no business interests that conflict with what you're doing. You should be going in there to serve the people, and this is not what's happening. And so if you try to justify and support MPs receiving all this money from wherever, then I'm sorry, I can't help you anymore, and I just have to block you. That's the bottom line. And then I had somebody else who was justifying, basically he was sending me a video on a guy who went into the European Parliament when we'd already said we had left. I have no respect for any MEP who went into that European Parliament from the UK after we had said we had left, because there was no reason to go in there. They could do nothing. And quite frankly, if people can't see the hypocrisy of this, then again, I'm afraid I'm seeking the truth. And, you've done a fantastic job, and we should all be very grateful to people like you, because I can't do everything. You've got a natural talent and lots of skills that has given you a perfect avenue to sort of highlight what's going wrong with the government. And I'd just like to say, Alan, thank you so much, and I hope you have a great Christmas, and I look forward to interviewing you in the new year, if I may.
You certainly may. Thank you very much, Caroline. Thank you for those few kind words. It's lovely and it's encouraging. And I fully agree with you about the accountability. My three favourite words, and to quote what they always quote, transparency, accountability and security. TAS, as I always call it. Now, TAS must be seen to be working. And if it ain't seen to be working, simply it ain't working. and you look at the task, you look at the Nolan principles, which dear Lord Nolan would turn in his grave, because people, when I say people, the scoundrel MPs are blatantly, they are driving cart horses through Nolan principles, through TAS, and guys like Hogg that you mentioned, my God, he just sends a shiver down my back every time I see the guy on TV. They will be judged one day. They will be judged. Lovely. The same to you. Have a lovely Christmas, and I look forward to speaking with you again live. Take care. Lovely.
Thank you, Alan. God is watching always. Please do share this video, everybody. We need this truth to be circulated, because there's just no point in me, always talking about judges and the government being corrupt. There's your evidence. Take care. Have a great Sunday, and look forward to seeing you all soon. Please share, and I'm doing a show on Wednesday.